Hello and welcome to the Indie Bandits Twitch and YouTube channel. Today we're going to be playing a bit of Before We Leave. I'm Joe and today I'll be joined by Archie. How are you, Archie?
I'm alright.
Good week so far?
It's been alright. The weather's come out at long last, you know, the 1 week of summer we get in England.
Yes,
We've been treated it too.
Yes.
So that's quite nice. And when you're starting off your stream talking about the weather, I don't think that's the best sign of how your week's gone.
No. I
It's been a bit
disagree.
boring.
I disagree. I was having a
really
having a nice walk today, and the weather was nice here. But you know, I'm in sunny southern Spain, so really, it's more worth talking about when it's actually raining or something different to sunshine. But I was out on my walk and I was listening to a podcast, and they started by talking for about half an hour about the weather, and I still actually really enjoyed it. And they were joking about how that's not a good way to start the show, but I actually enjoyed listening to it. So I hope viewers, listeners alike will enjoy weather-based bants at the start of a stream.
I quite like the English, like people in England's kind of nature to have a very fickle opinion of the weather. It's like
Yeah, it's you know
it's
what
too
though,
hot.
it's safe
I want
though.
the sun. It's too hot.
It's a safe conversation though. Apparently, I think
Yeah.
we as humans we like to have these kind of conversations because everyone can just agree with them. It's the
Yeah.
same reason that jokes and Christmas crackers are rubbish, because the last thing you want to do is have like an edgy joke that might be complicated to understand or not everyone will get. So instead, you just put in a joke that's shit that everyone hates, so everyone around the table will completely agree that the joke is shit, and then you don't cause tension in a social situation. So the jokes are intentionally shit.
Okay.
So it's
It's
kind of
the
clever.
edgy joke, and that makes me think: Did the people who made Cards Against Humanity make Christmas crackers? Because given the nature of that game, not making Christmas crackers feels like a missed opportunity to me, at least. To have a,
What?
like gimmicky little thing where you'd open the Christmas cracker and there would just be like this obscenely disgusting joke just lying within. I think that'd be good fun.
I mean, I'm sure there's someone in some company
Yeah,
that's
someone must have done
specialized in a kind of like racy Christmas cracker thing, because that'd be so funny as like a joke present, especially if you're the kind of person who likes sabotaging family events. Because then you could just like swap out all the Christmas crackers with some obscene jokes, and then like watch your nan open like and read an outrageous joke. Who knows? It's a good option. Anyway, should we jump into this then? Because
Let's do this.
I've started the tutorial, and we know tutorials aren't good. So if you want to talk about anything else, that's totally fine. But
Well, I'll tell you that I've never completed the tutorial on this, not because it was boring or that this game is bad, but I just have other things going on in my life. Unfortunately, I have less time for games. But let's take a moment to
it looks cool.
admire how lovely this game looks.
Yeah, that was a very Civilization-esque audio cue there. It had a little bongo drum roll kind of thing.
Yes.
I like the fact that they've called them peeps as well. Like but the language itself already indicates that this isn't going to be serious shit. Like you can't.
Even the nature of its color scheme and kind of with these like hexagonal blocks, it immediately makes it look more like a toy, for the lack of a better word. You know?
Yeah,
It's,
like a game, like your board game, real life board game kind of crap.
yeah. Like you could compare this to something like Frostpunk, but Frostpunk has a much more stylized realism kind of a look, and that's a game that takes itself like very seriously. And
Well,
it's class if
I'm
you can endure it. Like,
Yeah, I was hoping to play that next time around because we just got that for free on the Epic Store. So I thought maybe we could give that a go. Just a tonal shift from this.
I
It's
think we
difficult.
should. It's emotionally. I mean, I don't want to sound like soft here, but it's emotionally difficult to play. Like, you have to be, at least for me, you have to be in the right mood to sit down and play Frostpunk.
Yeah,
And I think you might like.
Is that not the
sorry,
guys who did the this War of Mine?
It was, yes. And if you
Okay.
remember the tone and the nature of that game, which was also very like emotionally intense, it's very similar.
That game was dark. That game was dark as shit, but it was brilliant for it. But yeah, none of that today. We'll enjoy some
Yes.
of the niceties of this. I'm just having a deeks around. Construct 3 huts and construct 3 tiles of road. This already, I mean, it's probably just hexagonal tiles that are doing it for us, but this game already reminds me a lot of Dorf Romantic, which is
know what that is.
It was on our demo disc a few months ago, and it's basically it's like it works like you have a stack of hexagonal tiles, and you've just got to like build them outwards, like like you were drawing decks, like drawing from a deck of cards, for example. It works like that, and you kind of build stuff up like what you're doing here, except the world doesn't exist until you're putting it down, and the next tile you have to place is sort of random. So it's a bit like, when you start a game of Settlers of Catan and you've got to put all the tiles down on the little board to start playing. It's essentially like that, but in a kind of chill city builder puzzle kind of way. So you'll end up with a river tile, and it has to be attached to like an already placed tile. So you're kind of like bound as to whether or not you like place the river here and block off this area, or and then the next one will be a hut, and the next one will be a windmill, and the next one will be a field. It has a similar vibe to this kind of Crack-On, seeming kind of chill, and it's done very well actually. We not that has anything to do with us, but but we did recommend it a while back, and it was included on our demo disc. And shortly after that, it did very well.
Nice.
So
this game really reminds me, and I'm not too sure why. Maybe it's just the city building aspect of it, but it really reminds me of Populous: The Beginning. That game from like 1997 or 8 or something.
I had that on PES1. I'm gonna say. I think.
Oh, did you really? I played on PC. Like.
Yeah, it was hard on PS1. I'm gonna say.
Yeah, I can imagine. Yeah.
I don't know if it was Populous: The Beginning. Maybe it was a later Populous.
Well, there was Populous, and then there was Populous: The Beginning, and there might have been a third one, but I never played it, and I have no memory of it.
It was 3D, so the one I had, not. It was Populous: The Beginning. The one I had. I'm just having a deeks at it now. It's and you control this shaman, and and she has a little like team of villagers and Crack-On like that. I got a potato, didn't I? I've got to build a well.
Well, I loved Populous at the beginning back in the day.
Oh, same.
It was probably one of those really early like PC games I played. Like when like PCs were becoming a bit more, what's the right word? When more people were like able to buy. Yeah, commonplace. Thank you. Yeah, I remember my mate Matty got one, and you just had demo discs because like PC games back then, and games in general, were still like really expensive. And we just played this like demo of Populous: The Beginning to like death. It's the same scenario over and over.
Oh yeah.
It was great.
Yeah, but you said that, and now I'm wondering if I did own the game or if I just played the demo again and again. Because I was quite young at the time, and it was something. That's the kind of thing I would do as well. I mean, I can't tell you how many times I played the first like 4 or 5 screens of Abe's Odyssey and Overboard.
Yeah,
do you remember Overboard?
I've got Overboard because I played the demo of that to death as well, and I never bought the full game until when I was working in a game shop. Someone traded it in like perfect condition, and I just bought it. So it's in this house somewhere, but it's never been like span inside one of the consoles I've got. Everyone remembers that game. Like everyone I talk to, like who's in the games, remembers Overboard, but I don't think anyone fucking bought it. I think everyone just played that demo. Like.
That's a shame. That's a. You know what? I think there's probably a few games like that, and I don't know. I'm a huge proponent for demos. I think every game and every dev, especially indie devs, should have a demo for their game. Indie devs in particular, because they don't have the big like marketing machine behind them. But I also appreciate that making a demo probably isn't the easiest thing in the world, because it's a completely different build of your game that has to potentially rely on assets that you mightn't be able to include and stuff like that.
Take a AAA game, for example, when you build a demo disc, say, not a demo disc, when you're building a demo, say, for like E3 or something, that takes a good chunk out of your development time. People are always still working on the main game, but you're going to have to take some of your resources and allocate them to branching off only a small part of your game. So people like, over on a kind of the show floor, are we going to stick it on the on one of the game like Xbox Store or the PlayStation Store. It takes a lot of effort to like put something like that together. But I do think demos are incredibly beneficial, to be honest.
Yeah, I think I can't remember where I was saying this, but as like an indie dev, the average consumer probably feels that they're taking a bigger risk buying your game.
Mhm.
We support indies.
Oh, 100%.
That's our crack on. But you've got to understand that every indie dev doesn't have a track record of 20 years in the industry or something like that
Exactly.
to back up the purchase that a consumer might want to make. So when they see someone's game, there are a lot of games that players will be looking at going, that looks good, but also I don't know who made this. And a game being made by somebody might be the like what helps you make your decision. So without that, having a demo is like, oh well, at least they can play it and go, oh well, I know the game's good at least from the demo.
Exactly.
It's worth taking a punt on. Wait for the
Has
library to
there,
finish construction. Right, yeah.
has there ever been a demo you've played, you thought the demo was crap, then somehow you ended up playing the main game, and the main game was like absolutely excellent, and you're like, oh my god, I'm so glad I'd give this another shot.
So not hang on, what? No, what? I don't think I've ever played like a demo and thought the game was shit in the demo, and then later ended up the game being really good. I think there are a few games that I didn't think were good at first, and then I've like either grown on me or I've went back to later, and I'm like, oh my god, this is good. I was so wrong about it. And what was the one we played that was like that? Onrush. Was it Onrush that we thought was
Oh,
proper
yes.
pants? We played it because they had like a free weekend to play it.
Hmm.
Remember they on PlayStation there was a free weekend where everyone could play Onrush because obviously the game clearly wasn't doing very well. And then we played it and we're like, this is a bit pants. And then it was a free PS Plus game, and we got into it and we're like, oh god, this game is actually really fun. It's a shame it did so poorly.
Well, we see it did poorly, but it must have found its audience because like when we were playing it, I think every time we played it, we got into pretty much a full game of players and no bots. I mean, there was bots the odd time, but yeah, I mean, I can't imagine that was an expensive game to make though, so it probably didn't necessarily need a massive audience in order to kind of sustain itself or make its money back. But yeah, I remember us playing that. I think it was a beta. Was it a beta or a free weekend? I mean, either or, but yeah.
I don't think it was pre-release. I think it had been released and it was just an event that it was just free to play that weekend.
Mm.
Maybe it was pre-release because I remember seeing the stuff for that game coming out and then being like, that game looks really cool. It is sort of like just a burnout on a rolling carpet. So
No, I'm glad we give that another shot because we got a good few hours out of that in the end, didn't we?
oh yeah, I've put in quite a few hours on that. There was a time I'd just like jump on it and like just do the offline stuff, just to I don't know, keep my skills sharp. I don't know. It's like
I did that with
crashing into
Trackmania.
oh
Trackmania is
yeah,
one of those games. It's just great having your console. I mean, if you don't like racing games, you're not gonna like it. And I'm not especially like the biggest fan of them, but I don't know. Trackmania, just a fun, very, very, very quick. Just do one lap or whatever it is. The lap takes you like what, less than 40 seconds
oh
most
yeah.
of the time.
They're often very short tracks, aren't they?
Hmm. Just bomb it, and then you get your lap time. Then you try and beat it. Class, not dead easy, but very accessible fun.
Yeah, I think that game's good because it's I guess it's a bit like like learning a song on a musical instrument. It's very much like practice and repeat, and that's the gameplay loop, as it were. And I think it's good for a sort of like, I'm gonna say like a flow state. If when you want to just like almost turn your brain off to like the rest of the world, then you can just chuck that on and just spend like maybe 20 minutes to half an hour just like getting faster and faster lap times on a very short track.
Yeah.
Right, I need to move something up here. Right. Yeah, I've got to build a little lift on the edge of here, or an elevator.
Well, I remember going back to demo discs, playing the demo for Dead Space back in the day. And I remember there was quite a big push for that game, and they were saying, "Oh, here's our mechanic is pretty much the idea that you never shoot an enemy in the head, and you just dismember them like by their limbs, and that's what you've got to aim for. If you go for the head, you're going to make them like stronger. So it's yeah, and so it's like tackling your usual inhibition when you're playing a kind of not shooter game, but
Yeah, yeah.
falls in it
Your
falls in that
instinct,
category a little bit.
your
Yeah,
headshot
exactly.
instinct.
I played the demo and I'm like, what? This is just crap. Like, what's this? It's just waves and waves of enemies on this dank looking ship. So I didn't bother with it, and I waited like a year or two, and the game had got like really, really good reviews. I'm like, oh, I don't know, maybe I'm just like not into it. And it went down to like 15 quid, and I thought, oh, whatever, I'll buy it. And the game is actually, it was just fantastic. And I think it was when you take something like a horror game when you've got to kind of build up the suspense in the mood. It doesn't make sense to splinter that off into a demo where it's more an action game, which is what they did. And the whole dismembering gameplay mechanic was fantastic. It really, really was good.
I think that's probably another issue with a demo.
Mhm.
I guess like if you've got a game that's fairly complex, then I guess demos aren't really worthwhile because you'd build something and it's
Yeah.
never going to show off your game. In that case, I'm guessing a trailer's probably more what you're after.
Yeah.
But if you've got something that is like if your gameplay loop and your instant gameplay loop is like the hook, then I guess you should really be looking into a demo. But if your game has a lot of facets and something that you couldn't really, I guess, show off in such a short period of time, then you're gonna have to work out other ways to do it, aren't
Yeah.
you? There's
The problem really is, I think, for games, when you're making a demo, most of the time you're getting a part of your game, you're taking a part of it, and you're kind of like isolating it into its own experience. But that doesn't make sense. If your game's been made well, in my eyes, that does make sense because your game should flow from one thing to the other. And when you're playing the full thing, like, how much should I word this? Like the context of everything, like that's come before and that's coming after makes it enjoyable. But if you only take a piece of that and play that in isolation, it probably isn't going to be that good. If you know what I mean, like
yeah. I mean,
yeah,
context is pretty important for
yeah.
your whole game anyway. Like, I mean, have you ever tried to show someone a show that you think is really funny?
Oh,
And
it's
then
almost impossible.
well,
Like,
and especially if you're just trying to show them clips that are really funny, where you're like, "Oh, this bit was really funny." You're like, "Yeah, but actually, I totally forgot the whole episode had set me up for this," or
or
you
there's
know,
maybe past episodes or something like that, or
that inform your understanding of the character. It's like the reason that it's funny that this character did that is because you know this character, and that's
Exactly.
either not like them or that is so them, as it were.
So to me, even though it would be more difficult for no matter whether you're working in indie or AAA, the best way to make a demo is to kind of like cater the experience of your entire game and condense it down into something much smaller. So the demo is like totally its own thing that doesn't appear in your main game. But
Ah,
again,
like a prologue. I've seen devs who
yeah,
do
yeah,
a sort of like rather than a demo, they call it a demo, but it's like a prologue to the game. So I guess it's
yeah,
like the front part of a book or something like that, or like chapter one of a longer.
exactly.
So
Yeah,
I guess it
it's
works like a proof of concept to say like, oh, if you play this, you'll get an idea of what the game is, but we can't show you what the game is because it needs its own context. But if you like what we've done, then you'll probably want to buy the full game, and then they normally
yeah,
do this
exactly.
prologue for free.
Yeah, it'd be like here's our main mechanics condensed down to a much smaller experience. In my head, that would work better, but at the same time, you're gonna have to get people. You're gonna have to get your game designers, your program, just basically everybody involved with the production to think of of its own unique thing. And I can imagine that's probably not feasible for most people.
Oh no. Well, this is the ongoing challenge of indie devs, at least just managing
Definitely.
the extremely limited amount of resources they'll have. They don't, like you said, a AAA studio would put a whole like team on the demo, and in a lot of cases, an indie dev, either they're a solo indie dev, and it's, do I completely sort of leave the project on hiatus for a bit whilst I build this demo, or do I just keep plugging away at the game and hope it works?
Yeah.
Do you know, I mean, I hope it works in the respect that I hope it's successful and people discover it and people buy it, because I guess that's the end goal. But
yeah, it's a difficult one. It's definitely way outside of my very limited expertise on the non-existent expertise on the subject.
yeah, what I would say, because I don't know from the technical side, but from the, I can speak to the marketing side to some extent, and I think there's a reason that even companies, like, this is an old like marketing adage, but there's a reason companies like Coca-Cola still advertise. Do you know what I mean? Like, you'd think everyone knows what Coca-Cola is, but no, you've got it. Like, you know, you need this ongoing, maintained marketing effort, and every time there's a new Coca-Cola product, you can bet that even in the far reaches of Newcastle, there'll be people out on the high street giving out samples of this product. Like, Coke will have made. You know, how many times have you been walking down Northumberland Street, for those that don't know, the main street in Newcastle City Centre, and you've been approached by people trying to like give you a taster of a new drink or product, or all this kind of marketing thing on like a busy Saturday afternoon in the before times, of course. But yeah, it's like you've got a product that you need to like, that people need to know about, essentially. Like, no one's going to buy your product if they don't know about it, and they're even less likely to buy it if they're not sure if it's good. So I think a demo is probably the easiest way to show potential buyers that your product is good.
Yeah, definitely. How are you finding before we leave?
I don't know what I'm doing. I'm just chatting to you about
you
demo.
need to expand your village to support 25 peeps, so you need to build more houses.
Yeah, I'm building stuff, but I'd lie if I said I'd been like proper concentrating on it. So I don't actually know.
That kind of thing
it's not super complicated. I'm guessing, but I don't actually know what I'm doing. I will just like explore the menus. But the thing is with the tutorial, and this is kind of interesting because I watched the Game Maker's Toolkit video on tutorials like last week, and it's Mark Brown, right? The Game Maker's Toolkit guy.
I believe that's his name. Yes.
Yeah, it's such a bog standard name that it doesn't make it very memorable, and that's no fault of Mark Brown, but he has a very
John
like
Smith.
Yeah. But what I would say is he made some very valid points about these kind of games where most of the tutorial is just highlighting bits of the menu to click on, and then you click on it.
Oh my god, yes.
And I would be lying if I said I've read anything it told me to read here. I just literally looked for like the tooltips that highlight what I wanted to click on, and then clicked on it. So up to this point,
I'm so glad, like, on that tutorial, he brought up every gripe I have about those games like Civ and Total War and what's the other one, Crusader Kings. And I know those are really, really, really good games, but because I'm dumb, it's like none of them do good tutorials in my eyes. I can complete the tutorial, no bother, and after I'm done the tutorial, I'm like, well, now what? You know what I mean? It's like my brain doesn't make sense of anything I've been told. Like, I tried playing Total War Warhammer 2, and it's excellent, it's really, really good. But most of the time, I'm like, what am I actually doing here? I just don't. For some reason, my brain doesn't compute those type of games, and I think a part of it is down to, well, I'm not used to playing them. For one, I haven't grown up playing them, but also the tutorials don't give aren't done very well. And I'm glad Mark Brown kind of said the exact same criticisms I've been thinking for a while.
Well, I don't know if he touched upon in his video. I'm gonna say this, that like it's my own opinion. It'll probably turn out I'm just quoting him verbatim because he's a smart guy and he knows what he's talking about. But I feel with most tutorials, the problem is with those kind of games, which in his video he calls complex games or complicated games, in those kinds of games, you have to either have somebody who wants to learn how to play them, or you're sort of done, and they're never taught in a way to get people to want to play the games. If you get me, it's more of a question of the teaching in these tutorials, and I think in those kinds of games, the tutorial is formed around the basis that the person playing the game wants to learn how to play the game. And if you've ever tried to teach anyone anything, or ever worked in teaching, students that want to learn are very easy to teach, far easier. Students that don't want to learn are very difficult to teach. And with students that don't want to learn, you've got to kind of work around how you teach them, or how you essentially trick them into learning, as it were. And I think a lot of these games don't do that. They don't trick the player into learning by like having fun. Do you know what I mean? Like, everyone goes back to that classic Super Mario Brothers first level as like the example of how it doesn't tell you anything, but it teaches you exactly what you need to do by like placing the Goomba here and placing the block here, and everything's placed in such a way that you like immediately learn by doing, and it doesn't tell you anything. But that's all well and good for Super Mario Brothers. How do you do that in something with like hundreds and hundreds of systems like Civ? I don't know.
Exactly.
But it always feels like those. I think they just clearly the devs go, the people who buy these games know what kind of games they are, and will want to learn how to play them. So we can just give them loads of text, and they'll read it and learn how to do it, and that's fine. But it doesn't work in the way Mark Brown put it, saying if you don't play these games and they're not your kind of games, it's going to be hard to get into them.
Yeah, I mean, I really want to get into them because I know if I did, like, it's like learning how to play chess. Like, I don't know how to play chess. I don't understand. I don't know the rules. I can imagine if I learn how to play it, I'd probably like really enjoy it. But it's just like, so I mean, I imagine chess is not difficult to learn, but with something like Civ, it's just like sitting down and learning it, because there's a lot of different systems and trying to understand how they all interlink with one another is probably a bit more difficult than your average game of like, I don't know, like Crash Bandicoot or something, which I did grow up playing, It's,
I told you I've taken up chess recently. That's an ongoing thing. Yes, it's a
marvelous game though, isn't it? Like,
yeah, it's because I can't remember why, but I think my mum had watched like Queen's Gambit, and she was like, "Oh, I want to play chess," and since can't get back home and see me family, I try and call them more regularly than I would in like pre-pandemic times. So previously, me and my mum were playing like Scrabble online almost daily. So once a day we'd call each other, and we'd have a game of Scrabble. But I was regularly beating her at that, so I think it was like, "Oh, I'll just play chess then. Play chess. I've just learned how to play chess. Let's do that." And I didn't know how to play chess. I knew how all the pieces moved, because I tried several times throughout my life to learn how to play chess. And for a while I was working for a chess website, but I didn't actually know how to play the game. I just knew how all the pieces moved and what the objective of the game was. I didn't know like the inner workings or strategy or how to actually be good at it. So took that up, and we play daily, and I've started like looking into like ways to play. Like, don't get me wrong, I'm still proper shite, but it's an intriguing game, and it's like even just like a few tips about how to play, I'm like, oh my god, like it doesn't look like it could have that much depth.
Oh no,
that's what's genius about it though. Like when you look at other games, like when you've been playing like computer games your whole life, you'd think like, come on, chess, like it can't be that clever. It doesn't have like in-game currency and all that shit.
Exactly.
But then you're like, holy shit, like there is so much you have to like learn and remember, and sometimes you have to learn like absolute patterns. Like on my breaks this week, I've been trying to like beat like the highest level computer I've ever beaten. It's taken me like umpteen attempts with like playing it in a mode where you can where it gives you tips and tells you how good your move was based on a chess computer and all this kind of shit. And then once I'd like beaten this AI by the website telling me what to do. Then I played it with like out the tips, but with like take backs. So if you make a move that's like really shit, you get like a few do overs. Even then, I was struggling, and God, it's taken me like all week just to like what I thought was a slight increase in difficulty. But there's so much depth to that game, and I think that's testament to why it's like thousands of years old or whatever, and it's played all over the world and is still like mega popular. Like chess
that's what I find quite fascinating about like Civ and Total War and like Crusader Kings is that they're very, very complex games, really, and they're like incredibly deep, but they're also incredibly popular as well, or popular enough to sustain themselves. So, like, you know, like how many Total Wars are there? Like 15 plus, maybe. I mean, maybe there's less than that, but there's many of them, and like Civ just comes out and does well every single time, and it's just like it's odd to see that games that are like so complicated and have so many like layers to them in terms of their mechanics and hooks are still really, really, really popular. So I kind of like admire that these games are all like really ambitious in terms of like they just do their thing, and they don't like kowtow to kind of, you know, the mainstream, not the mainstream, kind of like the what's popular in the industry at the moment.
Yeah, they sort of have like
really,
this
really cool.
timeless, ongoing thing. Like, but I mean, I guess you need to have success at some point to make it worthwhile. Because I'd like to know how many
100%.
studios at some point have went, well, we'd love to build this game, but we just we can't. You know, Civ was huge, I think, pretty popular from the get-go, and I guess that meant that they could make Civ 2 and just keep going. Do you know what I mean? Like, they knew it was less of a risk because they're like, we have a good fan base. And I think a lot of these games that work like that, because, you know, there's no doubt that there's games that are similar to Total War that, for example, that just didn't get off the ground.
Yeah,
that bombed, so they didn't make a second one. Right, what am I doing at the minute?
no doubt. Like,
build an iron mine next to a rusty hulk. Oh, there it is. Oh, there it is. I was researching it or something. I guess I'll put it here. Should I build 2? Let's do it.
it's cool though. I'm gonna give Total War Warhammer another go. This will be like my 4th or 5th time trying to get into it. I don't drop off because it's boring. I just get confused. You go so far, I'm like, am I actually winning? Am I progressing? I have absolutely no idea.
This is one of those things with, especially with like long form games, that I think is quite
Which
difficult.
I'm not used to either. Like I'm used to like games that are long, but not a long form game. If you know what I mean. Like Death Stranding is a long game, and I played that for like 50 hours. But Total War, you know, and those games aren't. This is where it's not the same. You know, it's
It's not the same because the loop is long.
yeah.
The game
exactly.
itself is long because the loop is long. Whereas I'm guessing I didn't play Death Stranding, but I guess the like day-to-day tasks you do in that are shorter, so you do them more often. Whereas like what I mean is like if you end up heading towards a fail state in a game with a short loop, it's over in a matter of seconds. Again, going back to Mario, if you fall down the pit, you're dead, it's done, and you go back to the start of the level. But you don't spend the entire level knowing that you're heading towards failure. Whereas I think in like Total War or something like that, there might have been a decision you made ages ago that you have no idea has literally shot yourself in the foot. And then 7 hours later, you'd be like, well, I don't understand how I couldn't beat this game, and it's actually a decision, you know.
That's so cool. I love the idea. That's one of the big problems of modern games, especially for a game like a Hitman, for instance. I love Hitman. I think they're some of the best like games out there at the moment. But there's an easy way to like to save scum the entire game because the feedback loop's like a lot shorter. While in something like Total War, you could do something, and it's unlikely, I think, that you're going to be making so many saves that in like 2 hours into the future when one action 2 hours previous starts having its
and you wouldn't even know.
Game.
You wouldn't.
Exactly.
Because if you knew that would cause that, you probably wouldn't do it.
Yeah, exactly. So,
if you knew that decision 2 hours down the line would ruin everything for you, you wouldn't make that decision. So, and you probably wouldn't save beforehand because I mean, I guess like save scumming's for like these instant, like especially like RNG events, you know, Like, it's like taking a shot in XCOM. Like, save before... I mean,
Yeah.
I don't do that because I think it's cheap and
What's the point?
defeats the point. Like, if you just want to win the game, just say you won the game. Just, like, tell yourself, like, before you go to bed, just go, I would have won that game if that number generator wasn't, like, 90% and still missed. Like, if that's what gets you off to bed, then say that to yourself, because you're essentially doing the same thing by reloading your save just a second later, because... Yeah, it's unfair, but that's sort of almost the point of the game. Like, it's random. That's how randomness works. Sometimes the most obvious and common event won't happen.
I know, and sometimes it's more fun to just let the entire thing play out, because the game's built to, built with that in mind as well. Like in Hitman, like, sometimes I do, like, just load a previous save on Hitman where I've just done something really dumb. Like, I think once I put the controller down, but I forgot to pause or something stupid like that. You know what I mean? It's like, or I accidentally like hit a button and it took me gun out, and like, oh fuck that! Now I didn't mean to do that. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But it's my own stupidity is like out of human error has made something happen rather than an action I'm trying to do has failed. You know, I usually try and like when I try to do something intentionally and it's fucked up, I usually try and like continue with that action and see if I can get around it.
Yeah, because that was your decision, and you're like living with the decision.
Exactly.
Well, I tell you, I beat XCOM 2 during the first lockdown because I had a lot of time, and over here in Spain we were like fully locked down. Like, we weren't allowed out the house except to go to the shops. So a lot of time in the house, and I was like, you know what, I'm gonna go back to XCOM 2 because I've played it a lot. I've put in so many hours in it. Always played the Iron Man mode, where your saves and decisions are permanent. You can't save the game in Iron Man mode. It auto saves after every action, so there's no way you can, even if you do something stupid. So there were a few rounds where I'd gotten drunk and played it a bit, and then I'd wake up the next morning and be like, oh no, I killed like 4 of my best soldiers, and I just had to like live with it. So then there was a rule: don't play XCOM 2 when you're drunk. But I ended up beating it, not on like a super hard setting. It's like played on like the default difficulty. But like that's what I wanted out of the game. I wanted to see the end of it. And maybe if there's like another lockdown for like 12 months, which looks unlikely, but you never know. If a 12-month lockdown came around, then I'd be like, you know what, I might try XCOM 2 on a harder difficulty setting in Iron Man mode. But there was something so rewarding about this game that I've always played and often failed. Actually, I don't even know if I've often failed. I've often just kind of like dropped off the end of a campaign because I thought like I was doing so badly. I was like, oh, just forget it. There's no way I'm coming back from this. Maybe I could have. Maybe I should have, maybe I should have just tried and stuck with it, but I just quit and start a new campaign because I'm like, no, there's no way I'm getting back from this.
Yeah, like this War of Mine's similar. I think they do. Did they restrict your saves? I don't. Well, I don't think they do, but I don't think it's as easy to kind of just revert back to a previous one. But again, a part of that game at least, is trying to like not let your team die, and like if they do, like you really feel the weight of that in the game. I mean, not necessarily emotionally, like maybe in some cases you will, but like it's more on the fact that really does mean you have to like change your strategy when you lose like one team member, because everybody in that game is crucial to your success. Like,
yeah, I do like it. That's the game where like you'll wake up the next morning and they'll be like, oh, by the way, so-and-so lost it and just like couldn't deal with us anymore and gnashed off and took all our stuff. Like, he just, some guy just had a breakdown because he didn't have cigarettes or coffee or something. Some minor thing that you should have been, like, getting for them that led to, like, that mental decline that they just didn't want it. They wanted to go off on their own and try it themselves. Something like that. I thought that kind of thing was brilliant.
It's good, though, because, like, that game doesn't... when you get, like... I generally like kind of macabre and dark things, not because I'm an edgelord.
You are, though.
Not because I'm just like the edge king of the video game industry, but it's I don't know. I think when you do it right, it can just be really impactful. And I think that generally you want to like you watch. Well, for me, I watch movies and play games because you want to have some kind of like reaction to it. Yeah. And if they can make you feel like just a bit like somebody wouldn't usually feel on a day to day. You know what I mean? Even if it's a bit of like a negative feeling, it's quite cool that I think that a product can do that to you. But I can't remember the point. But there's so many games when they try to be dark or gritty,
Edgy.
and it just feels fucking cheap.
Well,
and
you've got to
just,
be
like,
sincere,
crap.
don't
Like,
you? This is the thing. Like,
yeah,
I think you
like-
can feel when someone's just put in some edginess because they felt it was a box to tick, and when some
Yeah,
people
like-
genuinely felt the like the thing they were trying to say and the message they were trying to get across, which I think does hold true with this War of Mine. Like, I don't know the ins and outs of the development, but I do remember it was something. I think it was something about the war in Bosnia, like really.
Yeah, it's based on
moved
the
team.
Bosnian War or something. Like, I'm sure. Yeah, I'm sure it's something to do with that.
But the team were really moved and really looked into it, and clearly
Sarajevo
had.
and all that, isn't it? Like,
Yeah,
was it
yeah.
Sarajevo? Yeah.
I think that was.
But
yeah, they care about the subject matter. It didn't
Yeah.
feel just tacked on for a laugh. It didn't feel like a cheap sell to just be like, oh, look how cool our game is. It felt like they genuinely believed in what they were doing and the message they were trying to put in the game.
Yeah, exactly. Again, it's cool to see like another kind of part of like culture like tackle something that's maybe like emotional to them. You know what I mean? Like if that had been like no AAA company I can imagine would make a game based on the Bosnian War. You know what I mean?
Yeah, it'd be a hard sell, wouldn't it? It's
Exactly. Like everyone focuses on like I guess the more obvious ones like World War One, Two, possibly the Cold War or something like Vietnam. But like those are important events in history and all that. But I think they've been done a little bit to death.
and I don't think they're not being done. Oh shit! I didn't mean to build that there.
And are they being done with like respect? I'm not too sure. Maybe they are.
I didn't feel that was the case with that Call of Duty World War II. That just felt like a cash, not a cash
I
grab.
A bit sick, that one, yeah.
It had some pretty terrible writing as well. It seemed pretty like ham-fisted when they try to like get deep and clever about the Holocaust, and it was like, I felt like the tone was also. I feel uncomfortable with those kinds of games, to be honest. Like, if you like,
I know what you mean.
I don't mind like I don't mind shooters or like violent games or anything like that. And I guess like in certain respects, you can't in a shooting game you can't avoid the shooting.
Mm-hmm.
But I think if you're doing something about like a historical event and it's about like real people, I think there needs to be like it either needs to be so far from the event you're covering, like you can get away with like medieval Total War, and even if that was really like tongue-in-cheek and silly, you'd be like, all right, yeah, it's been 600 years, we're okay. But like, I don't think not when the scars are still healing, to have like this kind of like bro shooter all around.
It's a bit
World
strange,
War
isn't
II.
it? I'm okay. You can do your war game or your war movie, but you've got to set the tone of it being an exaggerated part of history, so it kind of separates itself from the event a little bit. Like you haven't seen it. Well, I'm assuming you haven't. But the film 1917 is like a film based on like the trenches, and it's the setting is the trenches of World War One, and the story's just like you've got to go stop something. I can't remember exactly, but it's done really well, and it never feels cheap. It never feels like it's like an action film for action's sake. There's obviously action in it, but it's done with this.
Is this the
slow,
big one cut type
big
film?
one-shot film, yeah, and it's really well done, and it kind of shows like how disgusting everything was, and there's no for America and all that. It's just even though because obviously it's all English actors, but
So they're like
there's
England.
no hero moment. Like there's no hero moment. It's just like oh yeah, all right, yeah. Spoiler alert, like they succeed in their mission, but that's it. Just ends. I don't remember the swell of music and the "we did it, boys." It's just oh yeah, done now. Next mission. And I think that's probably a slightly more accurate interpretation of how things might have went on back then. No pats on the back, just all right. But again, with a mass market game, you don't want something that's going to leave your fan base massively depressed.
No, but it's kind of like, I don't know. That World War II Call of Duty, I just didn't think it did the right tone. I think the problem was that there were moments where it tried to do the tone, and I reckon it should have just stuck to the one tone it had. You know, like if it just stuck to the full on like punching eagles, fuck yeah, we're American and we're awesome and we're here to save the day in Europe, then it should have been that all the way through. But I just remember there was a really like horrid and attempting to be harrowing bit in the concentration camps at the end, and like
Yes.
do you remember, like, spoiler alert for a game that's like 3 or 4 years old or something by this point, but there's a bit where one of the soldiers who happens to be Jewish is in the concentration camp, and he's like, he's absolutely gaunt because he's been starved in that, and I think he says something, German soldier says something to him, and he's like, in America we have democracy, and it's just such a terrible, stupid, like you said, hero line or hero moment. That's meant to be like really cool, and it's like, no, this is not the time. Like, even this character who, you know, I didn't feel it, and I was like, that's not where they should have went with that. That is someone's
Like,
not really.
I'm not a
about.
historian, but I can imagine. Was it the Gestapo who looked after? I mean, monitored the camps. Have I got that?
No, the Gestapo were the police, I believe. But either
Right,
way,
I'm getting this wrong.
Just
Regardless,
Nazis,
like,
blanket Nazis.
Yeah, the Nazis who were looking, you know, monitoring. I say looking after, as if they're like, you know, that implies as an ounce of like compassion. The Nazis in charge of the camps, like, I can imagine if an American like give them lip, they would. I just feel they would have just shot them. You know what I mean? Like, we got democracy. I'm like, fuck you.
Yeah, it's not. Yeah, it's like this is
Like,
not.
alright.
This is not a moment for Hollywood-esque sass.
Yeah, 100%. 100%.
This and that was the way it was trying to be. It was trying to be like a Marvel hero, like, you know, in a moment where like the city's about to be destroyed, and they like roll their eyes like, here we go again, time to punch an 80-foot dinosaur or something like that. Like it was delivered like that, and I just honestly,
You have to make it goofy if you want to do that tone. Like, you have to just go all out in it. I think, like,
yeah.
you can't have. I just don't think there's a mid ground on doing something like that. And you know, like the film *Inglourious Basterds*, it's just ridiculous. You know, like, everyone in it's a cartoon character, but you don't mind because I mean, the
That's
first
the
scene
point, isn't it? That's
is a little bit of an exception, but the majority of the film is just like ridiculous and silly and goofy and completely entertaining, and I think people are okay with that.
because that's the
because
tone they've
it's-
set, isn't it? Is that not
Yeah, it's
like it has?
consistent. Yeah, it's like consistent, and it's like it's not. This isn't the World War II of, you know, the past. This is kind of an alternate history.
This is a goofy retelling
take.
of it.
Yeah. I remember the Battlefield 1, when that came out, they had this one trailer where it was very, you know, typically heroic, where the music's like it's absolutely amazing, it swells, and it's all like these kind of, come on, we're gonna do this together, we're in it together kind of thing, and it is kind of like, oh yeah, go on boys. Like, and, you know, it seemed to be going for more of a like, what's the right word, but kind of like a more like, oh, the hero tone, like, oh, these guys who did it were absolute heroes who fought in this one. You know, they absolutely were. I thought, okay, this looks interesting. It looks like they're taking the subject matter of World War One, you know, a little bit Hollywood, but maybe a little bit more seriously. And then the second trailer comes out, and it's got like fucking like a remix of Seven Nation Army, and I'm just like, this is just, I don't know, this just seems wrong. And it goes from being like, you know, was this horrible thing, but we fought in it together, to being like, oh, look at these cool explosions, to this remix of this awesome rock song, and I'm like, nah, that's lame.
Yeah, it's
Don't do that.
yeah. Just get your tone right. That's all you need to do. It's just, I think a consistent tone not only feels more genuine, like it's the same kind of crack on as having like you know when you have a comic relief character in something and it feels out of place, or it just ends up annoying, it ends up being annoying. Hashtag Jar Jar Binks. Like,
oh, I feel sorry for that bloke though.
oh, the bloke who played him, like, look, he is an actor who did a job. Like, there's a lot of actors who need work, and also it's to be in a Star Wars film. Like, can everyone just remember the kind of things and lengths you'd probably go to be in a Star Wars film? So, like, this guy had a pretty much a main role. So, you know, even if there were moments where he went to bed at night going, this script's a bit pants, isn't it? You know what? He woke up the next morning, he's like, I'm in a Star Wars film, motherfucker.
Yeah. Well, there's this film I want to see. It's a Russian film from the 80s, and it's called Come and See, and it's almost impossible to get a hold of. And my mate said it's like, you know, it's a really kind of bleak and like you know, as
right up your alley.
As bleak can be, like really, right up my alley, but like really tough to watch kind of thing. And it's about the young boy going through World War II, I believe, a 14-year-old boy who gets involved with the army. And it's from what I understand, there's a YouTube video on it, and it's a really good, like, well, from what I can tell, it's a really good analysis on the film. A film I haven't even seen, so I don't know. But apparently, it takes the entire war, and rather than portray it as kind of like a war movie or an action movie, it tells it as a horror film instead. But that doesn't mean like there's ghouls and ghosts and like zombies. It's just taking the way you'd usually shoot something like that would make you feel uncomfortable, and applying it to a war film. And I've heard it's really just not bleak for bleak's sake, but it's trying to just be like, this war was disgusting, and we're going to try and show you as the best we can how disgusting this war really was.
Just tell it accurately as possible, and be,
and it has
genuine.
One of those.
Just be genuine with what you're trying to say and do.
And it doesn't have the ending of kind of we made up boys or anything like that. It has, from what I've read and what I've heard, it has the ending of the war just goes on until it's over. And the characters at the end of that film don't know how long the war's going to go on for. Like, you do, but they don't. So it's, next day is just another day in the war. And I'm like, oh my god. That to me just seems so intelligent for some reason. It's just like, because no one does it. No one does it. No one wants a
non-happy ending.
Exactly, yeah. But I kind of like it every now and again, the idea of like, oh no, that's horrible. I'm not.
Well, I also like the kind of like, it has a point, but it doesn't have a point. Like it has an arc, it doesn't have an arc. There was was it not? I'm gonna say it was Peep Show. Was that not like the ending of Peep Show, where they just end and they're exactly at it's square one, like the way the first episode opens up with like with everything they've all been through. They're just like, they're still flatmates and that's it, and it just goes on. It didn't. I know you haven't seen Friends, but Friends ends with them all like they're all moving on to different phases of their life, and the flat that's been the central point of the show, they all just leave their keys on the side table and they move out, and it's like sad, but they're all moving on to other things, so that's it. Like, you know, so the show's all been for something. Something's been achieved after 10 seasons of this show. Whereas at the end of Peep Show, they're like, you know what? It's just like you could go back and watch episode 1 now, because it's essentially that's what's happened. Nothing's changed. And that's it. And nothing had to change. It didn't. At the end of it, I wasn't actually bothered that the characters didn't do anything. It was like, but you're not there for. Well, I'm not, at least not there for the beginning or the end or the whatever. I'm there for the ride. You know, I'm there for experiencing the show and the things that happen to the people, and it doesn't matter if none of it's changed at the end of an episode or at the end of the whole show. I don't need that closure. I think it plays
into kind of what we're saying, like, broadly about all these different games, is that with, like, Friends' ending plays into probably what I guess is the mentality of the show and kind of the essence of what the show is about, and probably fits perfectly with its tone. Just like I feel Peep Show's endings did. It's kind of like, these guys are completely self-destructive, and unless
wrong for each other, but they're not going to change. But we've watched them. We've watched them over 5 or 6 years, and we know they're not going to change. Why would you think suddenly that if they had an epiphany at the end of that show, you'd be like, that is not them at all?
Oh shit!
Why did you give us 5 seasons of them two not at all acting like this, for a bit of a Deus Ex Machina kind of crack on coming out from like...
Exactly.
outside of left field or whatever,
like,
and just coming in and being like, oh, and
if-
suddenly they have an epiphany. Like, no, get fucked, man. They've had plenty of moments to have an epiphany. Why would this be it?
Yeah, if like Mark got with Dobby and he had that happy ending, and Jez got a job and he maybe found some success on the internet with his music, that would that'd be like the worst fucking ending you could have done for that show.
Isn't that a bit like how I Met Your Mother ended? It was just like they got a lot of flack because they didn't essentially this show did a whole like halfway house thing and tried to be everything and nothing, because basically the woman he ends up, you know the premise of the show is like he's telling his kids how he met their mother, and the story's like really long and winding because he never actually tells them how he met their mother. And in the very last episode they're kind of like, oh, here she is. But all the way through the show, like, fans of the show thought it would be one particular character who was actually in it, not just a random person he's not met yet. And in the end, it is essentially a random person he's not met yet, but she dies of cancer, and he ends up with I think it's cancer, but she dies of something, I believe, and he ends up with the one who fans would have always thought he would have ended up with. And it's such a cheap kind of like half-assed effort. Yeah, you're just like, no, you can't have it both ways, you dafties. That is such a silly thing to do. Like, commit to one thing or the other. Take that, potatoes.
The film, which I recommended to everybody. I remember.
Just everyone, the whole world, in the Archie announcement. Planet Earth. This is Archie. Watch this film. Sorry.
Well, I love this film. It's a film aimed at like it's definitely aimed at like a younger, like kind of like mid to late teens kind of audience, and it's called A Monster Calls. And I remember watching this, I'd be like bawling, and I'm not that soft when it comes to watching. I'm getting softer as I get older, but I remember watching this film like fucking hell, like this is really hitting, like hitting all the emotional spots, and it's a really like emotional film about something a young lad's going through and his like terminally ill mom. So it's already a bleak subject, but it just handles the subject matter and this weird kind of fantasy element so, in my mind, so like so well. And with I don't know, like, and the ending and the whole the premise is right. He's the young boy's like mom's dying of a terminal, like an unknown terminal illness, and he finds a talking tree who tells him stories. Nice. And he says, right, the last story, you have to tell me the last story. But each story is like a little bit of thing about his grief and him growing up and like him becoming a bit older. And the whole moral message to the end of the film is just kind of like so like ugh, but at the same time you're like, of course he would feel like that. Do you want to know what it is?
Like, no, don't spoil it. But I can get
okay, I would spoil it.
But I like that kind of thing where it's just like it's not just like characters aren't just having epiphanies and solving problems, and it's like it's the argument of Empire Strikes Back, isn't it? Where it's like the film ends on a downer, and everyone's like, sometimes things just end on a downer. That like it's not a happy ending is not a guarantee. So can everyone just stop pretending it's a thing? Like, Hollywood, stop trying to pretend. Like, I know some people like it, and as humans, we like stuff lined up and all wrapped up, and with a neat little bow on it. And sometimes you can get the end of something and be like,
yeah. Sometimes you love that, though. You're like, yes.
The fact that they didn't give, it's like, oh, Film Daddy hit me harder. It's like, oh, the fact that you didn't give me what I thought I wanted made me love you even more. Like, as weird as the way that was to put it, but you know what I mean.
I need to go to the loo, pal. I really need to wait. I'm sorry to stay out on stream, but I'll be 2 seconds.
Go for it. Let's go for a cheeky intermission, and we'll come back to this in a second.
Are we back?
We are back. Hello and welcome back to the Indie Bandits Twitch and YouTube. Just a cheeky wee break there. We're in the middle of playing Before We Leave, and I think I'm getting to the end of the tutorial. We've been chatting about all sorts, Archie and I, Archie and me, Archie and I. So
Archie and I, yeah.
Yes, I can't remember if your subjects. Maybe it's me and Archie. Who cares? And
No time for semantics.
yeah, exactly. You know what we mean. I'm not someone who's a grammatical prescriptivist. I don't care if you make grammatical errors in your speech if your intentions and message is clear. So yeah, we're apparently repairing this little ship. I've not been paying too much attention to the game itself because we've just been chatting shite about dark films and stuff like that. But my God, this is a Zen-esque game, isn't it? I think it is. I mean, there's no fail state in it.
It's lovely.
Might actually play it in a bit, or this is just the tutorial. It's taking me the best part of an hour.
I'll tell you what, though, like, going back to the tone subject, even though I love the Metal Gear games, I do think they have a massive tone problem across probably every single one of them, and especially Metal Gear Solid 5.
Is this because I think that directorially, Kojima tries to include everything from every film he's ever seen that he thinks is cool? And like, don't get me wrong, I'm just some scrub on the internet saying something that I would never be able to do. Like, we live in a world where it's very easy to critique someone who's done something, and don't worry, I don't think Kojima's going to like watch this and start crying of us criticizing him. He's had critiques before, but I just want to go. This is from a place of just saying like this is an honest criticism, and I think like he tries to do all this cool stuff, and he does, but it doesn't always land. That's my piece. I've said it. Sorry, Hideo.
I mean, he's still excellent. He understands the
still very good. Yeah.
Like, light years above most people. But I remember playing Ground Zeroes, and I remember being quite like, oh wow, this really is like going for something a bit bleaker than the previous ones. But it actually felt a little bit more consistent throughout the entire. I mean, it's a small experience. It's only like 2 hours. It's a bit over the top, but whatever. It's like it's trying to do. It's like, it's edgy, dark kind of storytelling. And I remember getting to 5, and 5 tries to continue it, but I think when your game mechanic is like you attach like a balloon to somebody,
attaching balloons to people,
and when they shoot in the air, they go wee,
lifting people away on balloons, people in sheep.
Exactly. And your mission is to go rescue your like companion from a slave camp or something, and he's had his leg taken off.
It's a POW camp, isn't it? Yeah, it's
something like that. I'm like, what? Like, these are two totally different things.
Oh, this is really cool. Just to move away from that, like I'm sailing this little boat around here, but like the fact that the world's half built just creates a very cool thing. It's
looks like a jigsaw.
There we can. But yeah, there's that MGS5, like you said, it tried to do this like really cool, clever shit, didn't it? And Ground Zeroes was really good, but I think because it was so like contained that it really worked at the tonally. Sail your ship around and find a new island to colonize. Okay.
I think Ground Zeroes, I know it's much smaller than MGS5, but I think Ground Zero, for me at least, even though I loved MGS5, I think Ground Zeroes shows the flaws in an open world game, because I feel Ground Zeroes is much more condensed, and I feel all the mechanics just work better within that smaller space.
But we've said this quite a few times, haven't we? We've said that like open world games.
Till the cows come home.
Yeah, the open world games are much too big. No, they are often too big, and when they make a smaller game with open world elements, and my example would be that Deus Ex game where you're based in Prague. That's got all the stuff of an open world, but you don't have. But it doesn't need to be vast. Like, why have all this stuff you can do across like a huge desert when you can have it in one small city center?
Yeah.
Because the enjoyment from the game, at least not for me, doesn't come from just walking between 2 points, as it were.
Well,
So
yeah, this is why I didn't like Skyrim very much back in the day. I'm still not a big fan of it now, but I've said to you guys, like the Elder Scrolls games just don't do it for me because there's too much time spent doing nothing.
just dondering. Like, I mean, at least you could
Yeah.
fast travel. But the thing is, like, the areas
Why have an open
between
world?
but the areas between where you explore have to have something. I felt like the map for GTA 5 was very good because there was always sort of something to do, and you can still get across the whole thing in a decent car in a few minutes. Do you know what I mean? Like, it's not like, that's what I liked about it, and I feel like there was some very good design.
Class. I love those games. Like Dishonored's the same though. It's not open world, but it's very like you can just adapt your play style because like the game design and the level design has been so constrained. It's just a a lot tighter. Oh, it's fucking great, man. And you don't get that in an open world, in my opinion. A lot of open worlds, I think, could be way off on this one, but I think a lot of it's like procedurally generated in computers now, and
Yeah, I
as
don't
in,
think not
they
like
to make the map, they click like they put in some this that and the other,
parameters.
and they click a button, and then it goes up. How about this one? You're like, I'll have that one.
Yeah, yeah. I'm
I
sure
don't think
they
they sculpt it, but
yeah they double
I could be way
check
off.
the work that gets automatically generated by the computer, but it's like yeah
Oh, man, like-
the brunt of the work is done through generation, and then the tweaking is done by the devs.
yeah.
I'm just tootling around here. I wasn't feeling that island
Yeah,
I went to, by the way. I'm just I meant to colonize a new island, but I got to that one and it wasn't really.
I think the OCD of trying to uncover the entire planet's kicking in, yeah, Drew.
Oh no, I'm definitely doing that as well. Well, no, because look at this island. It's just too much deserty bits, but
I think that's the objective, though.
that must be the only one, right? Are you thinking?
Because if I remember this bit, you go to the desert one, and it teaches you about surviving in the heat.
Right. Well, let's just do that. Should I move my boat all the way up in this middle bit so it's in the bay for some reason?
How do you feel? Because this was getting spoken about at work today. How do you feel about the price of games now being like a default $70 or £70
£60 or
out
whatever?
the door? Yeah.
You know what? It doesn't like right. For one, anyone who's trying to say that's just how much they cost.
Nope.
Right.
Wrong.
No, that argument doesn't work because if that was just how much they cost, every company would just be breaking even selling their games for $70, and we wouldn't have billionaire, we wouldn't have billionaire owners at the top of like EA and Ubisoft and all that shit.
Exactly.
So that's just utter tosh. Like that is just not quantified, and there's no argument for that. Secondly, you know what? Until, and I've said this for every aspect of games, if you keep buying it, they're gonna keep doing it. Like it does. I can't remember the last time I bought a game full price. Actually, I do. It was probably Metal Gear Solid 5.
Yeah.
A spider.
The problem is, though,
Did you?
I've just seen a spider in my room crawling across one of the walls.
Excellent. But
It's a small
yeah,
one, though.
that's the thing. It's like you don't have to pay 70 quid for a game. Like if you're out of the loop and don't get a game on release, especially for single player games, you don't miss out on anything. Like
Yeah, 100%.
your experience doesn't. If it's a single player game, you're not gonna lose anything by being late to the party. Don't worry about it. Just think about
I'll throw a
play it
softball
when
at you,
it's
though.
free. Go on, then, let's hear it.
I think the problem is, though, like Ratchet and Clank has just come out, 70 quid game, and I don't deny that it's probably going to be excellent. I'm not going to
Often
fucking
good
pay
games.
70 quid for it, though. Like, I'm not paying 70 quid for a game. You can get stuff like I'll wait. But I
Yeah.
think the problem is, like, Ratchet and Clank, you got to think this is probably a game aimed at a younger audience. So, like, I would say I could be way off on this, but for the sake of example, let's just say younger people are buying this game. Younger people generally don't have $70, £70, whatever it might be, to buy this game.
No,
And the price is
parents
going to
do.
get dictated by the people who do complain about the price of these games and buy them anyway. Like people our age, probably. Not with that mentality. We don't have that mentality.
No,
So I think
but
it's
there are
unfair
people
to
who
kind of
just
like-
will buy it and then complain anyway. But you know
yeah,
what?
exactly. They do not need to be 70 quid, right?
You could also
I have a
just-
feeling this will fail.
You could
like,
just wait. No, but they No, because they'll just keep going up in price as people buy them. It's not. It's sad, but people just keep buying it. There are so many.
70 quid for a game. That's like unbelievable amounts of money in my eyes. Like for just a piece of entertainment. I mean, I would pay probably 70 quid to go see like a band like I really like. You could say, well, what's the difference? And I don't know. That to me, there is a difference between those two things. Maybe I don't like games as much as I like going to see live music. But I don't know, like 70 quid for a game.
That's how it works. The value of most, other than the cost of like raw materials, etc. Most products prices, at least once they've made their money back. So there's the cost price, how much the games actually cost to make per unit. So once they've charged that, everything else beyond that is technically profit. If we're not going to get into like the complexities of like, and there's the marketing team's budget to whatever, and there's all these other factors, other costs that come after the game's release. Everything else is profit, and how much profit they can get out of it is how much people are willing to pay for it.
Exactly.
And everyone who sells a product has that choice to make about, do you want to sell 1 million copies of something at £1, or do you want to sell 800,000 copies at like 20 quid, and you want to sell the latter? There's a perfect peak number where you get the most money, and you've just got to find it, because obviously the lower the price, in most cases, the lower the price, the more units or copies you'll sell, but in some cases you'll sell more by charging a higher price, and that's called perceived value, when people think something is better because the price is higher. So people will see a game that's $70 and assume it's better than, a $20 shovelware game, which in some cases it might be. But also the fact that, if Ratchet and Clank came out and it was 20 quid, everyone would be like, oh, this game might be pants. Because it's no longer on the AAA $70 shelf, it's on the it might be on the indie shelf, so they might actually sell more copies by selling more. And obviously when you do this kind of thing with like Hype Train and the fact that people will get involved with anything, we were talking at the end of last year, we were all talking about Cyberpunk and how fucking terrible it was, but people were still buying it and then complaining about it. And it's like, well, if I still haven't even did that yet. I've got to you went and bought it though. Do you know what I mean? Like you still did it. And
I bought it before we knew it was a disaster. Because I was going to get it for Christmas, and we were say, oh, what do you want? I'll just have Cyberpunk. That'll definitely be good, and I was wrong.
No, exactly. And why can't I research this? What's this thing? Red Research. I don't know what Red Research is.
Thing is, though, right? I'm generally the weird kind of contradiction with me is I'm kind of like if you like something, you're gonna enjoy it. Shouldn't matter how much money you want to put into it, Like, I like the game Gone Home. It's only 2 hours long, but I didn't feel, like, cheated when I spent 15 quid on it, Like, I really enjoyed that. I enjoyed that more than the 35 quid, much longer Call of Duty game or whatever it was.
Oh, if you enjoy it, then it doesn't really matter.
It doesn't.
But the thing is, when people are complaining about the price of something and then still paying it, it's like...
Exactly.
You're aware there's other crack on out there.
40 quid for a game's reasonable, I think, but it has to be pretty sublime. You know what I mean? Like,
yeah, have I accidentally destroyed this?
I don't bother buying games anymore because they probably end up going on PlayStation Plus or Epic Game Store anyway. Like that Final Fantasy VII, it's been out less than 2 years, and it was already free on PlayStation Plus like 2 months ago.
Squadrons is the PS Plus game. That was the whole big thing coming out. I remember that being an announcement, and now I guess some of the people who like bought it for full price. I mean, I hope you've enjoyed it, but it's like stuff like that.
That was budgeted price as well. That didn't come out at
all right, okay.
60 quid. I think they had lowered the price because it is a smaller experience overall. I think it was like 35, but I don't know. Maybe you bought it and went on PS Plus. You didn't care. Like that happened with me and Shadow of the Tomb Raider. Bought it when it was discounted, 15 quid, and literally that same month it went on PS Plus.
It's the look of the draw, though, and to be fair, it's like...
Yeah, exactly.
You still get 2 other games, and it's like...
So I didn't enjoy it as well, so...
so it doesn't really matter.
Yeah, not really. But for me, 70 quid feels a bit excessive, you know.
Yeah, it's
To me, at
it's a
least.
high amount, but it's not. It's not going to change until we do. Until we either start voting with our wallets and not paying for it, because they'll eventually, once they hit a point where they've overcharged for games and people aren't buying them, they'll just keep seeing what they can get away with. Like, anyone who sits and thinks that like a corporation has like a moral fiber in its body, that one, you're like personifying it as if it's some kind of entity that like has morals and values. The people involved might have morals and values, but the thing itself exists purely to make money. That's what companies are for.
Yeah.
It's a funny one. It is.
It is.
I
I'm just curious because I work with a lot of
don't
nerds.
I don't I don't buy
Like-
any games at full price. I can't remember the last time I bought games. You know what? And given
Now,
that the subscriptions keep giving you games, I've got
It's
too
like
much of a
lesson
backlog
learned.
as it is.
Lesson learned from Cyberpunk. Like and I know the companies aren't as bad as that one, but like I'll never buy a game day and date. Like,
But what I don't get,
at least until something changes, you know.
I don't
It's
know why
like-
people pre-purchase them, especially if it's going to be digital download. If you get me, like,
What do you mean? I don't get you.
well, it can't run out, can it? It's not like, do you know what I mean? Like, why buy,
Oh, right,
buy
right,
yeah,
I see,
like,
I see, I
why
see.
buy a digital copy of a game ahead of time when you're not sure whether it'll be good? Unless they have like a
Well-
huge discount for pre-purchasing, and in that case, then it's like you're gambling on it essentially being good. But
Well,
otherwise,
for me, like, I'll tell
you
you,
wait until it comes
kind of
out.
a different story. Like, because generally, from what I understood, CD Projekt had a good track record, like a really, you know, like in terms of kind of their representation in the industry, they were very consumer friendly. They did everything for the benefit of the, and they just generally seemed like, oh, we're putting you. Obviously, they're making money, but they seem to be interested in, like, they would give Witcher 3 DLC away for free. And that game was sublime. I loved The Witcher 2. Witcher 1 was funky, but, you know, that was one of the early games they made, so you can't expect,
Yeah.
you know, them to... I'm just like, you know what? I just trust this company to do something good again. You know what I mean? But, nah. Fool. And I wanted something for Christmas, and I was like, you know what? Cyberpunk looks cool. Totally up my alley. I like cyberpunk things. I love Deus Ex. Seems like my kind of, you know... Seems to be in the Archie ballpark of entertainment. But, nah. Installed it just to see how broken it was, and I haven't did it on since. I'm waiting for them to fix it.
yeah.
Yeah,
It's-
so, no, it's annoying to actually have put some trust in something.
I've never been an early adopter though. That's not my kind of.
I'm usually not, like...
I don't buy anything on release. I don't have the latest phone. I've never owned an iPhone. I'm not paying
Never
800.
owned an iPhone.
I'm not paying 800 quid for a phone. You can say it does that and all this and all that and the other, but I never do that much on my phone anyway. Like,
no, same.
Does it work? What, you know? All right. If I was going to turn my phone into a gaming device, because there are some interesting options for gaming devices, like, you know, phones as gaming devices now. But
Yeah.
unless I'm going to do that, nah, it's like you find just have a cheap phone.
Yeah, 100%. Like, I, for some odd reason, had like a really, you know, far too expensive phone a good few years ago now, and I came to the point I said, why the fuck do I own this? I use this to not ring people and go on YouTube.
Yeah.
And then when that went, so it's the phone I broke when we were over in Italy, when it smashed. And after that,
Alright.
it was a good phone, to be honest. So, you know, it worked really well. It was incredibly functional. But I bought like a phone for a fraction of the price. Just kept me same contract. You know, I'm saving, you know, tens of pounds every month.
And does
And
it does it
basically does everything the other phone did. It's just a fraction slower, and I honestly couldn't give two hoots.
and you know what? I don't do anything that interesting that I care that the Chinese government is watching us. Nah, but
Not yet, at least. Not yet, at least.
Not yet. I mean, if I was a spy, I'd
Only
obviously,
once.
yeah. I don't know. It's just like there's a lot of sneaky stuff people do. And not just like supposed like Huawei phones and stuff like that. like, if anyone thinks like Google isn't being sneaky with what you do online and stuff like that, if Twitch isn't currently collecting loads of data from us now to
look at websites,
sell on.
man. Have you been on the cookie settings when you go on where's my data being shared, and it's just this long list of like random different companies.
Why would you go tell us that now? I was totally.
It's like, what? No, I don't agree to any of this. Why does this need to be shared?
I mean, it's powerful stuff. No, but if you work in marketing, like there are like in previous jobs in marketing, there were people who would like approach you and be like, "Can we buy your emailer list?" And you're like, "No." Or, "Do you want to buy an emailer list?" And I was always like, "Still no." But you know, for some people, imagine having like, if you're going to advertise something to someone via their email address, you'd love to send out something to like 1 million people. Like, that's just like free advertising to 1 million people. I mean, you've paid for the list and the data, I guess, but the point being is that it's
fucking mental.
It's just, yeah, that's businesses will do that. Can I build a?
Yeah.
It's not necessarily dangerous. I think it's something that can be dangerous in the wrong hands. That's what I think the caveat needs to be, where it's like someone having your data is not inherently bad in as of itself. Like, some data is very useful. Like, so I do like the fact that like sometimes when you're watching, like if you watch like old school telly that's like not on demand, you can see what kind of audience they think this is for. Do you know what I mean? Like, you can see by the... Like, I can guarantee you'll see a lot more adverts for barbecues and power tools during football matches than you would say during Coronation Street. Now, and, you know, I'm not saying that people who watch Coronation Street don't like power tools or barbecues, and I'm not saying that people who like football can't like Coronation Street, etc., etc. But the thing is, when you're, you know, as a marketer, as an advertiser, you have to find your audience, and there are like technically certain Venn diagrams of certain subsections of certain demographics that have preferences for certain things. So you want to try and reach them when you advertise. So if you're looking for a certain type of person, you are gonna you know, in most marketing, all you're doing is finding certain stereotypes and trying to target them. Now we can do it with like so many more levels just through flipping like through the data websites collect on you. Like, when people think Facebook's listening to them, I'm like, it's way scarier than that. The thing is, through your browsing behavior, they can work out what kind of person you are because they have so many data points on everything you do and everything you search for and the time you do it and where you do it from, that they can build together a pretty accurate picture of the kind of person you are. So just because you thought it was listening to you talk about a certain product and then you got an advert for it, it's way smarter than that. They worked out that you'd be the kind of person that would want to see an advert for that, and you think it's linked to them listening to your phone because you remember talking about it. Whereas you might have seen that advert like during the week as well, and you didn't recognize it because you hadn't just been talking about it. That's why like Speak of the Devil happens. But also you see the people when you're not talking about them as well. Like, you just kind of, you confirm this theory that isn't technically there.
The thing is, as well, what's even scarier is they probably just collect everything from your IP address as well. You know what I mean? Like, so if you've got 4 or 5 people logged onto the same internet connection, like you would, you know, at a family home or something, everyone's data is just being funneled. It's pretty scary, actually. Do you know what things about that?
It's only scary when it's being used maliciously, but when it's like, you know, if you've like, we a while back we were running Twitter ads and like not spending huge amounts of money on it, but the amount of like things I could ask Twitter to target for. So I'd like target I tried targeting people of a certain age and demographic and in certain locations. Like I'd mainly try targeting countries where they speak English because our tweets are in English. So there was no point in me targeting countries where people don't speak English. Usually, it's a very small market. You don't want to pay for adverts that are going out to people who don't understand the language that your Twitter account's in. But it's scary how many like options you have, and that's just like on Twitter and paying bugger all. If you were like on an actual like with a marketing company doing all your advertising, or you could probably go into like scary levels of depth going, I want someone who I need to find someone who shaves their face like 3 times a week because I'm about to advertise a super close shave razors. And I'm like, well, our research has shown that people who log onto this website at this time and have these browsing habits are the kind of people who are clean shaven. You're like, oh, fuck me, like, how do they do this?
It is frightening. The thing is, like, as long as it's not being used maliciously, it's more, we don't know how it's being used, Kind of like the Civ thing, we don't know what's going to happen until it happens much later in the game.
It's 2 hours down there, exactly. That's the ethical concerns.
Yeah.
People, I think... like educated people in the matter and academics know what the risks of these kind of things are, and there's certain practices that they are like, a kind of like, what's the term for not
like, the cookie setting as well, like allow cookies and don't allow cookies. Like, how would you even know when we click don't allow cookies that they're not still taking the information they need and dropping things on your computer? We don't really. It's
the average end user doesn't. No, most people can probably check, and like malware stuff works in that way.
But you know what I mean? It's like we could click no, but then they're like, fuck it, we'll take whatever we need anyway.
But those are people who are just circumventing the whole system anyway, so it doesn't really matter what we do. Do you know what I mean? It's like saying, oh well, just say like, oh, guns are illegal. Well, someone can still get a gun and shoot you. But in that case, you can't be like, well, why didn't we make guns illegal? Like, well, we did, but there's still bad actors and people who just commit crimes. That's just something that happens in the world, and there's nothing we can do about it. But you've got to assume that when you like set some rules and have like the necessary punishments for breaking them, that most people will just like obey them. Most big companies will as well, and to be fair, I think most big companies are the ones that have most of the data, because if they get found to infringe them, like, I mean, remember all the flack that like Facebook got for the Cambridge Analytica stuff, and that was like before this was even like as big a talking point. When all the data goes missing and stuff like that, and you're like, when that happens to a company, like a lot of them probably don't want to. For that kind of thing to happen, it's too much bad press. I'm gonna go over to the other island, the School of Music. Sorry.
One of the creepy things I've found recently, generally when like, because I go on Instagram, it's the only kind of social media thing that I can stand, because it's just pictures of things I like, and I kind of like that. So I'm not on Facebook anymore. So I'm still on Messenger, so I am like a little bit there, and I don't want Twitter or anything like that. So, and a lot of the times these apps ask for certain permissions when you put them on your phone.
Yeah.
And one of the ones Instagram asked for was like, oh, can we have access to your contacts? I said, no, I don't want you having... For whatever reason, I just don't want them having access to my contacts. They don't need that information. Yeah. So I denied that. But what was really weird, very recently, in the last couple of months, people I had like, well, basically people I was dating like yonks ago, their faces started being recommended in my feed. I'm like, how? Like, I never had these people on Facebook. Like, I only ever had their phone numbers. How the fuck are these people getting, like, They have, like, no contact with anybody in our group, as far as I'm aware. Anybody in any other group I'm in. And it's just, the more, like, when one popped up, I'm like, what the fuck? That's coincidence, that's weird. Next month, another one. I'm like, what? Like, this is creepy.
But the thing is...
It's so strange.
But for example, like you're saying, they're not giving you didn't give it access to your contacts. There's no reason that there aren't any linked accounts, like, even on like dating websites, that when you agree to their terms and services, possibly. That when you you go on Tinder, when you swipe right with someone, Tinder takes the data off both of you, and then like there's no reason that Tinder couldn't just like sell Tinder data to Instagram, because in Instagram would be like, people would love this because people are always going to be trying to look at the Instagram profiles of people they were about to date. I don't know, but something like that. It
could be something like that. It could be. It is very, very strange though. Like,
I mean, there's probably something like this was kind of the point I was getting at. Like, rather than like the evil option where they just like say you said no and they went, yeah, all right. If me, a scrub,
that's what I
can
think.
come
I
up...
think I went no and they went no.
No, see, because that's I think the way they do it is way smarter than that, because if I thought of a way to circumvent that, just me as a scrub, you know, I was like, there's another way to get the data of this person. There's another way to get this... Even when they tell us no, what we'll do is we'll not get the data from them directly, because that's what they told us not to do. But... you know, there's no reason if I said, what time do you leave the house every day, and you're like, I don't want to tell you that, I'd be like, all right, well, I'll just camp outside your house and see when you leave, which is like essentially the same kind of thing that they're doing.
Exactly,
and I think
what they do. Like I say no to contacts, but the other person says yes. So my information, my phone number is still which is associated with my Instagram account,
and they just take it back the other way. Yeah,
and they just take it back the other way, and that's how it works. Boom.
There you go.
That makes the most sense, and that's so creepy to me.
Yeah, so they can find exactly. It's like I said, like camping outside your house or something. It's like, I don't know where you live, but where does your neighbor live? And you're like, oh, neighbor lives at 123, and they're like, all right, well, we're gonna check 124 and 122. What is it, The Simpsons? Well, I'm going to take the numbers off my door. I'll look for the house with no numbers on the door. Well, I'll take the numbers of my neighbour's house. So I'll look for the house next to the one with the number.
Okay, you win. It's strange, you know, the internet, morals of the internet and its etiquette.
At this point, for me, it's kind of like, well, this is the situation we're in, and as long as this is like, you know, for me, I'm very lucky because I guess I'm in a country where they're not like rounding people like me up, but this is the concern people have, because this data could be used by like really bad actors, not just people trying to sell you shit on Amazon so that when you go on someone's website you see an advert for like all like the power drills you were looking at or something like that, but the people who are like have something against a certain subsection of people. Like, this could be really bad for countries with, like, really bad, like, gay rights or with, like, racial issues and stuff like that. 100%. This is the kind of thing where it's like, imagine being, like, in China or somewhere where it is apparently really bad, like, and people, like... And you get accidentally outed.
More like North Korea. North Korea is probably a better example where I can imagine people just don't even dare...
Well, they're not even allowed the internet. They only have their own internet. They only have they have like a form. They do. It's like a work intranet.
Yeah.
So they can only look at stuff that's been decided for them. So I guess in that case, you're kind of like going. You're only allowed to watch. You know, you're only allowed to look at this and watch this. So it doesn't really matter. But I guess like even if it's that extreme, they might just do it on like search queries. So there might be a point where they're like, you know what? Well, oh shit, I'm doing badly here. Well, we'll round this person up because they searched for something that we don't like. Man, I am not doing well at this game. I've just been like milling around like the island and like nothing's been getting built.
You've got to construct a shipwright and construct a port.
Yeah, and a trade ship as well. I'm gonna just tell them to like, it's mostly desert. Sorry, planet. This is not very eco-friendly, but this 2-hour tutorial is telling us to do this. I mean, it's probably not a 2-hour tutorial if I was just focusing on the game, but you know. But yeah, it's like back to North Korea, which is a sentence I never thought I'd say. It's for them, you know, if they had all the like the browsing data, or even if just one day, like in the UK, like, you know, you seed all this data to them. And then they have all this data, and then suddenly they can work out exactly what kind of person you are. If you end up with like some kind of like fascist government in place that wants to round up a certain group of people, then they're very easy to find. Especially like you said, like down to their IP address will just like give them away. And obviously back in the day when the Gestapo were doing the rounds and, you know, trying to, like, drag people out of their homes. In some cases, they'd be in hiding and then their neighbours would give them up. In this case, like your contact details on Instagram, they're essentially being given up by not you. Do you know what I mean? Like, and accidentally, like, you know, there's some people who probably agreed to, like, yes to the contacts on Instagram and didn't realize that was, like, not something you'd agreed to.
Yeah.
But you have agreed with Instagram to put your number in, like your number, not your contact's number. Don't know what this is doing. Is this because they're sweaty? Oh, I need to build a well, don't I? I think I might have vaguely understood this game, even though I've not been paying that much attention to it.
Yeah, have you been finding what's this called again? Before we leave.
Here we can. No.
Here we go.
Yeah, before we leave. Yeah, it's nice. It does.
Doesn't it?
Especially when I do this, it's very Populous. I remember Populous looking like this.
That's why it reminds me of Populous.
The big
you could
globe.
do that, couldn't you? Yeah.
Yeah, I think it's that's the worst thing when we live in a situation where you can accidentally like oust your neighbor and have them rounded up by a secret police because you like looked at a certain product on Amazon or something. This is like these are the like further down the line problems that people have concerns about.
That's the worst.
But like I guess it's the same kind of concerns, not on the same level, but the similar concerns when they were building nukes, you know, or designing nukes, and then. There was an excellent podcast I listened to about nukes back in the quite a while ago. It was a BBC one. I think it was just called The Bomb, and it was just about how the first nuclear weapon came into being, and a lot of the like scientists and the great like physicists of the time obviously had some major concerns with what they were doing, but then also there was a point where like either we make it or the other side do. And they're like, holy shit, if the other side does, then they'll use that horrible thing on us. In the end, the side that made it first was also the only side to have ever used it. But you know,
they always kind of became a deterrent for the other.
Well, not even not the opposite of a deterrent. It was encouragement because it's like if we don't build the bomb first, the baddies will.
Yes.
So they were encouraged to do so. You know, they didn't want it. You know, a lot of the physicists were like, I don't think this is a good thing to do. Like, even this crosses, you know, even if we're going to use physics to, like, make horrible weapons, we all, like, agree that this one kind of crosses the line. And they're like, yeah, but the enemy might also be considering crossing the line, so we should probably do it first. Because then at least it'll be in our hands. But
it's still frightening. Like
super fascinating podcast, by the way. Just called The Bomb.
I think
it's The Bomb, and it's only like 7 or 8 episodes. But it was really good.
Everybody, listen to The Bomb.
The Indie Bandits podcast recommendations. We'll make a feature of it. That and I think it was 13 Minutes to the Moon or something like that, which is where I heard that, which was just about the moon landing and how, like, Neil Armstrong was proper winging it. Like, they didn't land where they were supposed to land, and it's not like they were at a time where it was like all automated or anything. No, he was just like, he was doing it by like feel and look, and he was like, nah, that place is too rocky, I can't land there. No, not here. No, not here. But also they're descending really rapidly, and they only have like X amount of boost to like stop the ship and stuff like that. And that show just explains like the 13 minutes of radio message to you and like everything that was going on and what it all means. And then the very last episode is that entire radio message just played out, so you can like relive it, understanding what it was all about. Oh, no fruit available.
So like you Neil Armstrong, you go to the moon with Buzz. And you get there.
Michael Collins. Well, I mean, Michael Collins.
Oh, really? I didn't know there was a third party. He shafted, does he?
No, he was the one who stayed on the ship. I think he died recently, you know. I'm going to say Michael Collins. So he was the one who had to stay on the orbiter that went around the moon because they rejoined up with that. And
that's what they used to get back home, yeah?
Yeah. So I'm sure it was Michael Collins. I want to double check. Yeah, in 1969, Neil Armstrong and Buzz Aldrin made the landing, but it was Michael Collins who, before you go on, the most interesting thing that he ever said about it is, like, for a few days while those two were down on the surface of the moon, he was literally, like, the loneliest person in the universe. Like, he was on the far side, like, he was orbiting the moon, so he'd be on the far side of the moon, so he was further away from Earth than any other human had ever been. And because he was on the dark side of the moon, there is no radio communication from Earth because you're on the, you're on the back side of the moon that, so radio communication doesn't reach him. And
Jeez.
and he was on his Todd, so he wasn't even with a crewmate. He was just for long stints, he was just like cut off from all human communication and further than any human had ever been from planet Earth. Like, that's mind blowing, but cool as fuck. Like, he was a cool dude, and like apparently enjoyed that crack on because he was just he wasn't into being in the limelight, so he was quite happy for like Neil and Buzz to be known and him to just be like a name, and then he like retired from being an astronaut and just like lived out the rest of his life pretty chill.
Yeah. I just wonder, like, when you're like the guys who went up there, went on the moon and all that, and came back. Like, how do you like like when you hear about like people who go on stage at a concert and they struggle to come down afterwards because their adrenaline's just going fucking mental. Like, imagine when you land back down on Earth, like you're like, oh, I've just been in outer space. Like,
everything
where do you
is
go
shit
from
now.
there? Like, where do you go?
Everything.
There's nothing comparable. Like,
everything sucks now.
Yeah, I guess I could be a manager at fucking TK Maxx or something.
I don't think that's an established career path for astronauts.
I'm not against that career path, by the way. That was just a general comparison.
It just seems like no, but it probably doesn't give you the adrenaline rush or thrill of.
It's like, what do you do? Like, you can't. There's no way you could possibly go from that.
Yeah, but I think they have a similar problem with like, say, like Formula 1 drivers or like race drivers.
Oh, I can fucking imagine, man.
They after doing all that,
you must be dopamine up to the fucking eyeballs after
that's
like...
the thing. Well, like Michael Schumacher, who obviously no one knows what his state is because he had that off-piste skiing accident a few years back, and nobody knows whether he can like walk or talk or anything like that, or if he's just like sort of like locked in from his injuries because the family's been very hush hush, and that's like that's their prerogative. They don't have to tell everyone what's going on and updates, but he's as far as we know, he's still alive and gets visits from his friends. We don't know if he talks or walks and all that stuff. But when the accident happened, the main question was sort of like, what's he doing off-piste skiing? But then again, it's also like, this guy drove Formula 1 cars for his career. Exactly. So off-piste skiing was like to get that thrill. Like, shit seems boring after that in a way. And between races a couple weekends ago, there was this video on Instagram of Lewis Hamilton skydiving between like two races. Not like directly between them. The races are a week apart, but like on his Instagram. But it was him on his Todd, by the way. I mean, like, he's not like attached to someone. He's done this before, and he can do all the tricks in the air and shit like that. But apparently, this is my favorite part about this whole story. He didn't tell the team, because obviously the team would have been flipping raging, because imagine if anything had happened. Imagine if he just sprained his ankle on the landing, and then the next like weekend, the team are like, you can't drive our car because you sprained your ankle skydiving. What the hell, Lewis? So apparently he just didn't tell them and just went skydiving, because it's like, it's like telling your mom you're going out for the day and then coming back and she's like, where were you? What were you doing? It's like, oh, well, I knew you wouldn't approve, so I went and did this. Like, that's basically what he did to the team. I thought it was class.
Christ.
I literally have no idea.
You gotta build a boat. I think we're gonna do it on the other island, though. No, we're gonna shipwright.
Oh, yeah. Sorry, I've messed this up. You're having such a nice chat, Archie, that I've just not been paying attention. I like this island, though. This island's the better one with the tunes.
This is cute. It's got a nice colour scheme as well. Lots of green.
Yeah, very verdant. What did we say? The shipwright.
Mm-hmm.
I guess it's the one with the anchor, yeah?
I
Shipment.
believe so.
Boom. There's one. And what do I need? A port. Double boom. And constructed. Oh, well, I just, like a divvy. I've been sat here just wondering why nothing's getting built, but it was because I was trying to build... Look, they're all like, we can't build any of this shit because we don't have any shit. Just left these guys. I've left these guys in what I'm going to call the New World, Island 2. Just essentially left them to die. But I do like the fact that this game just doesn't kill you. If this was any other game, I would have lost so long ago.
Yeah.
Like it would have snowballed into some like weird madness, and then I guess, like, yeah, and then it would just be like you lose, start again in this one. I mean, admittedly, I don't know. This is still the fucking tutorial. That's how shit I am at it.
Oh no, it took me a while to get to the same point as well.
It's a long ass tutorial. I mean, hopefully, if the game's just like this, then it's fine. The tutorial doesn't seem to be pushing you to do anything. I mean, I built the port, and this island's much better. No offense to Island 2, but Island 1 I prefer you, because Island 2's been nothing but a ball ache since we landed there.
Been 2 hours there, Joe. Do you want to call it, or?
I'd like to finish the shipwright and see what it does if we can wait a couple minutes. But yes, I was hoping to finish up as well. But I was kind of hoping to just finish I was hoping this segment of tasks, the trade ship, is the end of the tutorial. If it's not, then I guess we'll
it's
call
not.
it.
There's more after, but there's more
Really?
after this as well. Yep.
Oh, it's leaving a little sour taste. So I'd like to go back to this, but it's like, why am I still learning? Like 2 hours into it. I mean, I probably could have like flown through this, but I just. Oh, that's sad. I mean, but also is the tutorial not just the game as well? Like,
maybe it is. Maybe it is.
Is it just the
I never
game with
completed the tutorial.
Is the tutorial not just the game with tooltips?
It possibly is.
I mean, who knows? What a weird tutorial option. I mean, it seems like a perfectly nice game, but again, we started off this stream flipping talking about like tutorials and the points of them and like why games should and shouldn't have them.
Speaking of Civ, I'm sure that tutorial is also a beast, and I'm not playing that for a good long time.
Well, I see, because this is the thing. I've played Civ most of it. Like I started with Civ 2 like way back in the day, and I remember my cousin telling us that you press P to pillage, and none of us knew what pillaging was, so we just assumed they just pissed on stuff because it was P. Do you know what I mean? You say they just do a P on your on the field, and it kills all the crops, because that's what pillaging does. You like send your unit onto someone's farm or field, and then you press P, and then it destroys that field. So we just assumed pillaging just meant having a WAS on the field. It is not, but there we go. Yep, there we go. Right, trade ship. Do your shiz.
Pillaging in my time, then.
Yeah. This is a lot of crack on, isn't it? It has a lot more depth.
It's very light at the same time. It feels it could be potentially condensed down into something a little bit quicker, but I do feel I know how to play the game. It's
sort of yes and no. I also have no idea how to play the game, but I also feel that maybe it's just like it's the kind of game that it's not going to punish you for not knowing how to play it, and It hasn't thus far. There's no loose states, so I guess you can just, if you want to sit and really get into it and like min-max it, I feel it's that kind of like dopamine release button, isn't it? It's the idea that you're going to go, haha, my production level is like way higher now. I've managed to squeeze an extra 10% of production out of this thing.
It's nice and chill.
Yeah, very good.
Lovely.
Not that we've really played it. We've just talked about films and all.
When do we ever play a game on this channel?
No, that's fair. That's our kind of crack on. But yeah, let's call it there. And I guess all I have to say, thank you for joining us and supporting indie games. You can check out more stuff by looking for Indie Bandits on all the regular social media channels, Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, YouTube, and join our Discord to, if you're an indie dev, share what you're working on. If you're an indie game fan, see what other devs are up to. If you are active on the socials, I'd highly recommend keeping an eye out on our Twitter for Saturdays, Mondays, and Wednesdays, where we share a lot of indie game projects from around the web, and on Fridays, where we usually publish the stuff on our website, including articles of games that have just come out, or demo disc articles that have games you can try today for free. And our latest addition to our regular article list is our Kickstarter articles. So if you're looking to find new indie game projects and support them financially, that comes out once a month as well. And other than that, thank you for joining us, and keep celebrating those indie games. Tra Archie.
Paul.
See you later. Bye bye.
Doodle pip.